Welcome back. Super Bowl edition of Gridiron Gang. If you're here, you already know the outcome. Just like the offense started fast, we're going to do the same here and get right into it. First thing I want to ask you, Kansas City did win the toss. They decided to defer to the second half. What did you think of that decision for the Chiefs?
I didn't mind it because you look at it from a standpoint where you've had 2 weeks, preparing for this game, and you do what you feel most comfortable with going into this game. So had they felt comfortable, I think they believe they could have started fast with their offense against this defense, but I believe they wanted to give some confidence to their defense, possibly to start off the game, which didn't really seem like the smartest move because Philly went down and scored pretty damn quick. But I think they felt comfortable from a standpoint also of, if they're able to have this be a close game at half, they get the ball, start the second half, and then they obviously, they're going to start the second half strong with their offense. So, and Patrick Mahomes. And I think starting the second half strong in a close game sets you up better for a win than starting fast to start the game and possibly, starting slow on defense in the second half. I don't know. It's a tough the way this game is set up with Kansas City's defense being, less than perfect, obviously, and Philly's defense being very strong and probably the strong point of the team. And then you got obviously two good offenses. So, you want to get some confidence in that Kansas City defense, I feel like, to start off because it's going to be a longer game for them than the KC offense. And that's where I'm at with it. I think, but the way the game played out, look, KC made a couple big plays on defense when they needed to. And I think that was the difference maker for them. Obviously, especially with the, fumble from Jalen Hurts being returned for a score. But look, at the end of the day, this was Patrick Mahomes doing, even though he only passed for 182 yards. He willed them to a win. So that was the difference in this game for me.
Yeah, you mentioned that defense coming up with some big stops. It did not start that way. I think they started a step too slow and about a foot too high down there in that goal line when Philly opened up, marched down the field, 5-minute opening drive for a touchdown, capped off with a Jalen Hurts touchdown. As we expect, though, Kansas City did return the fire. They go down in 2 minutes, get a touchdown of their own, tie the game up at 7. And on the defensive side for Philly, I wasn't too concerned at this point. I know in the regular season, they gave up 35 to Detroit, 40 to Dallas, and 34 to Green Bay. But I figured they haven't seen a team like this. They'll make some adjustments, and then they'll ease into it as the game goes on. Didn't expect the outcome I saw as far as points on both sides. That's a pretty high-scoring game, 38-35.
Yeah, much higher than I expected.
Yeah, no question. And especially on Philly's side. I know I'll let you get to it later, but very disappointing defensively for them.
Yeah.
But after the 7-7, Philly does punt, so KC makes a nice stand there. But Philly makes a nice defensive stand as well. They do force KC into a field goal that is missed. Butker, I'm not sure. I didn't see the replay. I'm not sure if he slipped or if he just missed it, if it was a bad hold or what. But I know when this happened, this was going to be a factor in the game. What were you thinking when you saw that kick hit the upright?
I felt like this could have been another turning point because Butker is not one to miss field goals like that normally. And he's one of the more accurate kickers in the league. He's got a big leg. So you feel comfortable anytime you trot him out there for an easy 3 points, I feel like. When he missed, I was like, that was that moment where, damn, it allows this Philly offense to go down and score again. And look, last night, Philly proved they could go down. And obviously they're playing a weaker defense like they have pretty much all year. So when they're on offense, it seems like they can kind of take the approach of, okay, do we want to score fast here or do we want to just take our time and move the ball down the field?
Right.
And that's where I feel like Philly really excels on offense because they kind of have that option. They can score quick, but their bread and butter is just methodically moving the ball down the field on you and taking time off the clock. So, I felt like missing that field goal. It was just like, man, this could come back to haunt Kansas City at the end of this game. And, obviously it really didn't, but you look at that when it's at that point in the game and how early it was. It's Super Bowls are very, they are a high emotional roller coaster for obviously fans of those teams that are in the game. And you're thinking when you miss that, I'm sure Kansas City fans are like, "Oh man, this is not good." That's a very low point for them at that point. But the way the game played out, it was just very, very back and forth. I thought, like I said, there's times where Kansas City's defense made the plays they needed to, but they just gave up too much yards throughout the game. They gave up a lot of points, and I kind of expected this type of play from this defense. But at the end of the day, I mean, the way Jalen Hurts came out and was wheeling and dealing and running all over, there's no question to me. He's either in my top 5 rankings now or just about to crack it. Like last night sealed the deal for me on him being one of the top guys in the league at quarterback. To me, he was the second best this year in the league behind Patrick Mahomes. And I feel like he really proved that last night. I think if Philly wins this game, he's hands down MVP of this game. And, it's a testament to him. I think Jalen Hurts is continuously improving year to year, week to week, and he's only going to keep getting better because he's still so young. So the Phillies should feel very happy to have him for the long haul. But, yeah, the missed field goal, though, it felt like it could have been a turning point, but I think Kansas City was able to kind of stick together defensively after that and not allow, kind of stop the bleeding, if you will. But yeah, that it makes you nervous because the weakest link in this whole game is the Kansas City defense, and that's just what it is, and. So that made me nervous.
Field goal, you obviously had a short field for Philly, and we mentioned this offense being methodical, very efficient, very precise in what they want to do. But it was a short pass to A.J. Brown. I think they got him a first down, and then a 45-yard bomb to A.J. Brown on a double team. They got them a touchdown, put them up 14-7. So, like you said, it doesn't seem like they can be explosive, but when they pick and choose their moments, they got some guys out there on the outside, Goddard, Smith, A.J. Brown, that are really explosive and can give you some big plays when they need to.
Yeah, and I mean, after that missed field goal, they obviously go down and make it 14-7. So, that's why you get nervous, because when you have, it's not a turnover, but it's a missed field goal, and it gives them good field position, decent field position.
Right.
And when it kind of breathes a different type of life into the other team when you have a good field goal kicker who misses a kick like that in a big game, because it gives you like that feeling of, okay, this is our time. This is our time to win right now. We just got to go down and put points up on the board and keep stopping them. And I feel like that was at that point, I was starting to feel it after they scored that next touchdown, because it felt like Philly was all around playing well. But as the game went on, I couldn't tell you what the fuck happened to this top-ranked defense. I mean, they picked the worst game of the season they picked the worst time to have their worst game of the season. Yeah, because they definitely played like ass this game in a big stage like this as a defense when they've been top-notch all year long. And
I actually thought the first half was okay. After that field goal they missed, they did force a punt from KC. They have it, 14-7 lead. Hurts makes a great play on third down, gives them a conversion. Gainwell gets a nice run to get him across the 50. Then on third down, Hurts does fumble that ball where Bolton runs it back for a touchdown, ties the game up at 14. I mean, if it wasn't for that, things really could have got ugly for KC early, because I didn't see them stopping Philly at all in this first half especially. So that probably would have put them up 17-7 at the minimum, which I know 10 points really isn't anything to Patrick Mahomes, but that is a killer early to not be able to stop this
thing. I don't know. I don't have the answer to what, Philly players and coaches were thinking or what was in their head during this game, but it almost seemed like Philly as a whole knew that they could go and score on KC at will. Coming into this game, they knew that this was a weaker defense, that they had a much better offense than they do a defense, and they knew that they could be able to go out, and it felt like they just were like, okay, we just got to play good defense, but they really haven't seen an offense and a quarterback like this all year long. So it kind of really almost seemed like it shook them to a point, to an extent where they're like, God damn, anything we throw at them, they're just responding. They're just answering the call. Like, and that's what Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey do to every team. They can answer, or they can, dial your number and call you up because they have everything in their hands that they can do at will. It's just, when you watch, especially that connection from Mahomes to Kelsey, it's like, how does this happen? Like, how does every team not stop Mahomes to Kelsey? It's
especially those first 2 drives. He was wide open on everything.
Right. And, and like I said, before, it's Kansas City's offensive line picked the best time to have their best game of the year, because as a collective unit, they didn't allow a sack or anything. Like, and this is, against a front 7 and defense who put up 70 sacks on the year, the 3rd most in a single season in NFL history. So when your offensive line is protecting Mahomes like that in the Super Bowl against that type of defense, man, you got to feel good about yourself.
No question. We saw that was really the factor last time they were there against Tampa Bay. They weren't able to protect Mahomes. It was allowing the defensive backs in the secondary to cover these receivers, blanket Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, and Mahomes really looked like he was out there on a JV O-line playing against Tampa Bay that year, and that was quite opposite against this Philadelphia Eagles front, which was really a surprise considering the moves they made this offseason, how they've been playing this year, the moves they made during the season. I mean, that's a credit to Bieniemy, Andy Reid, Mahomes, that O-line, everybody over there. That's a great job over there for real.
And I think, obviously Mahomes got the MVP, as, most quarterbacks do in games like this, or, any type of, season award or playoff award, whatever. Quarterbacks are usually running away with the MVP of anything. So, but if I had to give my MVP, it would probably be the O-line as a collective unit, because they're not able to make those plays without them last night.
I'm fine with that.
And against a defense like this, who had a historic year as a whole, that O-line just played out of their minds. I mean, they really they came together and they just shut it down. I mean, Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, Hassan Reddick. I mean, you name it. Their front 7 and the depth they have is crazy. And like, they are always fresh out there. And for this O-line to just trot out there each series and hold their ground, that's winning football.
Yeah. Coming into the game, we assumed Philly had the better O-line. And it's not to say that they don't after the game. They did give up only 2 sacks for, I think, 2 yards, so nothing major at all. And they were a big part of this answer drive that Philly had after this fumble. A lot of that was Jalen Hurts, though, especially on the ground. But Philly does answer, and they go up 21-14. They score on this play, on a motion play, which I think will be a theme throughout this episode for me. Something I mentioned to you earlier in the season, especially when I watched your team. Whenever you guys will put 18 in motion, the defense acts like they've never seen it before, and the guy just walks into the end zone. No different here. They put a guy in motion. Jalen Hurts walks into the end zone because it was either the linebacker or the safety, flew with the motion guy, and puts him up 21-14. So at this point, I'm really concerned about KC's defense. I mean, I've seen it 3 out of 4 drives. We're not even touching guys in the end zone right now. I mean, this is this is not what you want to be looking like at this point in the game. But KC does have a chance. Just over 2 minutes left in the first half. They get the ball, end up with a 3rd and 15. Mahomes tries to scramble. Looks like he's going to shovel past it. He ends up keeping it. Gets tangled up. High ankle sprain. 4th down. About a minute 45 left or so before halftime. Philly gets the ball with a chance to go up 2 scores. What are your thoughts at this point in the game?
Well, I mean, being down 24-14, or, I'm nervous for Kansas City at this point, like, for real, especially with Mahomes having that ankle re-injured, because you're thinking, I mean, I said to myself, like, okay, he's going to finish the game, whether he has to get a shot in his ankle or whatever. It's a Super Bowl, he's going to play. But it's just, how effective is he going to be? And obviously, when we get to the second half, we know how effective he was in the second half. But you're worried because those ankle situations are tricky. And being a quarterback who is also a mobile quarterback, it hinders you a lot. So, and especially against a defense like Philadelphia, like it's tough. You don't want to be anything less than at least 90%. I mean, that's you're kind of flirting with danger there at that point. So, I'm really at this point, I'm kind of giving up hope, losing hope for Kansas City to even win this game. I'm just thinking, man, Philly's defense is looking pretty good so far, but Philly's offense is just looking outstanding. And I didn't know. I was like, I just don't see Kansas City's defense having an answer for them all game, the rest of the game. Like they haven't till this point. They're not. I don't see it happening in the second half. Jalen Hurts and that offense were doing anything they wanted, and they were doing it however fast they wanted as well. Like they were really being, how they were all season, methodical in their approach on offense. Like, do we want to score quick here? Do we want to just take a while to drive the football and take some time off the clock? Like they didn't have to. That's the thing about this game. It felt like is Philadelphia was setting the pace. They weren't trying to keep pace with Kansas City.
Yeah, but that's where teams get in trouble sometimes because nobody score faster than those guys over there. That is a track team. I know Tyreek Hill ain't there, but 15 still there, 87 still there, and Big Red is still there as well. So they got guys to replace that speed. They can find ways to strike quick.
Yep.
And, you mentioned that second half. They came out in the second half after holding Philly to 3 right before halftime, and they strike. They strike quick, and it was a lot of guys. It was a lot of balance on this drive, and they bring the Chiefs within 3. I think it was 24-21 at this point. Philly does go down, get a field goal, and at this point, I think we started texting each other like Philly's up 6. 27-21. It really feels like they're dominating this game.
Yeah.
But, like we said, KC's only down 6. And I think this is really when the game started to turn because KC does go down and they get a touchdown drive, puts them up 28-27, gives them their first lead of the game. At this point, what do you think?
And then, after Kansas City goes down and scores, makes it 28-27, I'm thinking, okay, you got to have a big stop here on defense. And that's exactly what this defense came out and did. They had the best drive of the game. Of course,
where it was second point for Philly all game.
Yeah, 3 plays, 7 yards, minute 53 seconds. Like
beautiful.
That's what you want. That's what you need in a game like this with that type of defense. You need to just force a couple of things to go your way. And that's what they did. They got that key fumble for a touchdown. They had this pivotal drive where it was 3 and out. You know what I mean? Like,
and look, when you're a defense like this and you got the lead and then you got to stop after that lead and you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes, you did your job for the game. You got him. He's going to go clean it up.
And that's the
thing.
Even
if Philly comes down and scores after that, he's going to go down and score after that. So you've done your job for the game.
So you hold him to a quick punt after that touchdown drive, and then you let Patrick Mahomes and the offense go down and make it 35-27.
Yeah.
That's where you're thinking, okay, defense just came up big for us and gave our offense the opportunity to extend this lead. And now that's when I'm like, okay, 35-27, Kansas City's up. The tides turn pretty quick. And when Kansas City can do that, you're thinking, ain't no way Kansas City's losing this game. Something has to go extremely awful for them to lose.
Look, I don't know what Philly was watching on film or if Kansas City was throwing some new wrinkles in there, but those last 2 touchdowns for the Chiefs, one was to Kadarius Toney on the bottom of the screen. Mm-hmm. One was to Sky Moore on the top of the screen. Toney's was 5, Sky Moore was 4 yards. What did those guys do, if you remember, before the snap? They went in motion.
Yeah.
When they went in motion, it was either the linebacker or safety, however the defense was lined up. It wasn't the DB, but that guy sprinted to the opposite side of the field for whatever reason. And on both of those touchdowns, the motion guy goes in, comes right back out, walks in the end zone. I don't know what Philly was doing on those plays. I don't know if that's Sirianni trying to be too cute or something along those lines. But that's something I was really looking at as a big turning point in these games, because I don't know if you're going to stop Kansas City, but you can at least make it tough on them. Maybe you can hold them to 3,
Yeah.
but you can't let these guys walk into the end zone with the firepower that they have. So I thought that was those are 2 big scores for Kansas City in my eyes, not just because it put them ahead, just because of what was happening.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like that's the point. That's the time in the game where Andy Reid's coaching and his play calling, it outclasses a lot of coaches, especially a guy like Nick Sirianni, who's still
wet behind the ears.
Yeah, and baby faced and learning his way. So, I mean, it's got to be a double-edged sword for Philadelphia fans and the organization. I mean, losing to a coach who was there or more than half his career or whatever,
14 years or something like that. Yeah.
Like, and he was consistently, and that's the thing with Andy Reid in Philadelphia. I think a lot of Eagles fans kind of maybe hold resentment towards him, but also love him very dearly in the same way, just because he was consistently really good there and a very good coach. He just couldn't finish the deal. Like, he just couldn't get it done.
Right.
And I think they obviously grew tired of it, and that's why he was shown the door at the end of his tenure there. But Andy Reid's been blessed with obviously great quarterback play his whole career. I think obviously Patrick Mahomes is the best of the best that he's had, but
no question.
It's just I don't want to hear anything else though about Andy Reid besides him being one of the all-time greats as a coach. He's up there with Belichick for me, up there with Tomlin for me. I mean, to me, he's slightly above Tomlin, because I feel like Tomlin's obviously younger, still has a long way to go in his head coaching career. So we'll see what that brings him. But right now, I think it would have to be Belichick and Reid as my top 2, especially modern day coaches.
I might still have Tomlin too. Give Tomlin Mahomes, and he has 4 rings right now. So,
well, hey, but Andy Reid's also an offensive guy. Tomlin's a defensive guy, so it also depends on who Tomlin has as his offensive coordinator to work with Mahomes.
Yeah, Ben was throwing for 5,000 yards up there, and if he was doing that, then I don't think
I mean,
Mahomes
that's true.
would be doing much worse.
But man, would you want Mahomes in your division?
I don't even like him that he's in my conference. No, I don't want him in my division. No way. Before we get to this last drive that Philly had, I will mention that before Sky Moore scores that touchdown, Kadarius Toney had a huge punt return that got Kansas City down to the 5. I think it was a 65-yarder, something like that. Terrible containment for Philadelphia's punt team. Great play by Toney. Great blocking by the guys up front. I thought he was going to walk in that end zone, but good pursuit at the end of the play. One guy slowed him up and another guy got him from behind, but that was a big turning point as well. This whole second half right here, this whole start to the second half was really huge for Kansas City. Big momentum shift.
Man, huge. I mean, but see, that's exactly why I say, like, Kansas City. I mean, most teams like to defer if they win the coin toss, but I feel like Kansas City really is like, okay, we have it close, pretty close to at halftime. We get the ball at the second half, and we're going to set the tone for the rest of the game. And that's exactly what they did. So it worked right into their hand and in their favor. So
it does. I think that decision depends on your personnel, who you're playing against, and shit like that as well too. I would definitely like to see that defense start a little faster than it did.
Right.
They were hitting hard, but they were late to the ball. But I don't know if it gave them confidence or not. But definitely coming out in that second half with that offense, that gives you confidence for damn sure.
Yeah, I think you try to get your defense confidence by sending them out there first to start the game. But obviously, that's not in your control as a coach. Is how it's going to go for them. You know what I mean? So at that point, it's up to the players.
Yeah,
and we've known all along that this defense is a weaker link. And I think in this big of a stage to end the season, going for that ring and that Lombardi trophy, you're trying to. It's kind of like mental warfare where you're trying to play mind games within your own team and get them to almost believe in themselves to the point where they can go out there and play their ultimate best game of the season.
Right.
And, I think it worked to a point, but obviously we're still pretty let down with how they came out and performed as a whole. I think we could say that about both defenses in this game, just because look at the score of the game. It's very high scoring. When you have a high score like that, obviously the defenses aren't living up to their name or their potential, but at the same time, we got a Super Bowl with two high flying offenses. So
true.
Football can be a very funny game. But I mean, I would much rather in a Super Bowl have, like I said in the last podcast, have a high scoring game like this than a low scoring one. Even though I love defense, I really like to see these quarterbacks and these playmakers go to battle and head to head. And it's almost like, last man standing wins. We're going to throw punches all game long. And that's what we got.
Which I can appreciate about this game. We've mentioned it before. We've talked about it throughout the whole playoffs. We won a great weekend of football. We get a good game here, good game here, bad game here, bad game there. This was a great game, and all the stars showed out in this game. So It was that's exactly what you want as a fan. And Jalen Hurts being one of those stars, he showed out in this last drive. A big pass to Devontae Smith, got him within scoring range. Jalen Hurts caps it off, gets him a touchdown and a 2-point conversion to tie the game up at 35. And you mentioned it was a high-scoring game. It was a high-scoring game, but not a lot of penalties, only 9 combined for both teams. But there was a big one called on this drive right here when Kansas City was driving, 3rd down, in field goal range. It's a hold on Bradbury. That was the call. After the game, he acknowledges he did make a hold. He did hold. Was it Juju Smith-Schuster or Valdez Scantling?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Juju?
Yeah.
So he admits that he did hold Juju on the play. I thought it was a little light. We do see this quite often, but it seems like the talk around the town is going to be the ref stole this game from Philly. Now, I know you might have a couple different thoughts on that. You want to share those with us?
Look, okay. Either way this goes, if it's a call or no call, we're going to have major bitching from half the universe. So I just feel like it's a little bit louder right now because it happened against the better defense, arguably the quote-unquote better overall team.
Because there was a penalty on the 3rd drive for the Chiefs where that guy definitely held, I forget the receiver, but he definitely held his hand on 3rd down and prohibited him from catching that ball. Look, we're not talking about that, but that was clear as day.
Look, at the end of the day, every fucking game we watch, whether it's regular season, playoffs, or Super Bowl, there are calls and no calls that we go back to and analyze and be like, they should have called this or they didn't call this, and it changed the course of the game. That happens every fucking game. I don't care if it's a Super Bowl or not. By definition, what he did is a penalty. And you can't argue that. It just happens to be the Super Bowl, a pivotal point in the game. And at that point, I think my tendency is probably more so in this type of game to let him play. But he called it. And, there are times like if that would have been a no call, you could argue like, well, the ref didn't have good positioning, or these refs only have certain viewpoints where they are at in the field, and they call what they see fit, and they let shit go where they don't see it. And
you think that's only something you call because the pass was incomplete?
I don't think you should call it just because it was incomplete.
You shouldn't, but it happens.
I mean, it happens. It does. But I think obviously you probably get a little bit more. It's just like the Brady effect. You got a guy like Mahomes who's ascending to.
He's getting a lot of those calls now.
And he's kind of becoming that new Tom Brady where, but he's also a guy. I mean, look, when you watch that play real time, I saw Mahomes right away walk into the ref, pointing his hand and point. Like, quarterbacks are smart. Like, that kind of quarterback is smart because he's going to fight for his guy. He's going to see a little tug, and you're trying to win the game, so you're going to plead your case.
Yep.
He got the call. Philly fans, you're going to be salty for the longest time about this one, bro. And
damn right.
And obviously, a fan of that of the team that happens against, you're going to be salty. I mean, if that happens, you and the Ravens, salty. Vikings, extremely salty.
49ers, they say, who was it? Jimmy Smith held Crabtree in the end zone down there after they had to shut the lights off. Get back in the game.
Look, I'm not gonna sit here and bash Eagles or bash Eagles fans because of that, because I know how that can be. Like I know, but at the end of the day, when you watch it over and over again, however many times you want to replay that fucking play, by definition, it's a penalty.
It is what it is, yeah.
So we cannot sit and guess what? That play didn't win Kansas City the game. They're still in field goal range.
They're still dealing with the shitty field. They still got to make the field goal. But it did take a lot of time off the clock.
But the biggest play of the game for me, McKinnon sliding before the end zone. You didn't give them a chance.
I wasn't sure if he was going to.
I wasn't either, but he did. That was a smart heads-up play. Like you didn't give him a chance, and all you had to do was kick the ball off, and that was a wrap. I did not like.
Go ahead.
I just was saying, at the end of the day, before that penalty, they were still in field goal range. They still had to make the field goal. So, and a guy with Bucker, you're going to feel confident with him going out there pretty much at any distance to kick the game-winning field goal.
Yeah, for the most part.
So, I don't think you can blame that one flag on the outcome of this game. That's just my viewpoint.
I would say the turning point was really that turnover. Honestly,
yeah,
that was the difference in the game, in my opinion. But to wrap up this game, Kansas City does get that field goal to go up 38-35. I did not like the kickoff option to squib it down the middle and give them a shorter field for a Hail Mary opportunity. But the Hail Mary opportunity fell short, and I don't just mean that
was the worst pass of the year for.
I mean that literally, because that joint bounced up about the 20-25.
That was the worst Hail Mary attempt I've seen in quite some time.
That was a Ron Garv senior year halfback pass right there, baby. I don't know what that was.
Oh man, I felt bad for Jalen when he hurled that. I'm like, man, that's not a Jalen pass unless that is it. I mean, is that Tua?
I was going to say, what number one is that? That might have been Tua out there. Shit. What number one is that under that helmet, man?
Yeah, that was a little rough to end the game like that. But, I mean, the squib kicking it's a very risky move.
Man, I was like, what are you guys doing right here? They could even get a field goal range. And he has some room. He did take the knee. He had some room to make a play. He's a fast player. He's a playmaker. Mm-hmm. He's a position guy. So I don't know. They had a chance.
And I think, ultimately this Super Bowl loss for Eagles and Eagles fans, it's going to sting for a long, long time. Probably, until you're able to get back there and win another one, because this was it, bro. You're going to lose a lot of that defense. Like this was it. You're losing a lot of your defense. Yes, you're going to have Hurts for the long haul, and you're going to have to pay that guy at some point. Look, Hurts can only do so much, though. If he doesn't have the defense he had this year, it's going to be a lot tougher. And you don't get a lot of teams do not get a lot of seasons where they can put together a defense like the Eagles had this year. It just doesn't come around that often. So you have to take every opportunity and capitalize on these types of seasons, and it just didn't fall their way. But at that, to flip the script though, and into Kansas City's point of view, all hail Patrick Mahomes, bro, because they had a crappier defense compared to Philly, and they still won it all, bro. And that falls on and that's what I mean. Like Jalen Hurts was a far second this year in quarterback rankings. Far second, because no one in the league can touch Patrick Mahomes with the effect he has on a team.
No. And we can just get right into these numbers if you want to in the wrap up. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, was the Super Bowl MVP, 21-27, 182 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like you mentioned earlier, 0 sacks given up. And he did have a big 6 rushes for 44 yards. A big run of 26 yards, I think, was his long that got them down to about the 5-6 yard line, set him up for a score. So very deserving of the MVP. Maybe not the numbers we expect from him, but the efficiency is right there. And the numbers aren't big, but the touchdowns are. And that's really what matters at the end of the game. So very deserving for Mahomes. He did not the trifecta. I don't know what you want to call it, but he led the league in passing yards, passing touchdowns, MVP, and Super Bowl MVP. So
look, he's the best player in the league.
Crown that man. Crown that man.
Like,
you don't have to say much about him.
There's nothing you can really say besides he's the best player in the league. He's earned that title. And I think, and I will say this, I was thinking about it last night when I was thinking back, on Brady's career. As a fan of football in general, I was just the first half to 3/4 of Brady's career, I was just that kind of
just a hater.
Salty hater, because my team doesn't have a guy like that, and
Brad Johnson, Gus Frerotte. It was rough for you guys around those times.
Like, you know what I mean? I told myself last night, I'm like, I am not going to be salty when it comes to a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Like, I'm going to soak up every year I can watching this man play, because this is greatness in front of our eyes. We're seeing an all-time great career unfold, and he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, there's just no question about it. And this is the type, like him and Brady, these are the type of guys you want to, grow older and tell your kids about. You know what I mean? Like, and we're witnessing it, and I'm grateful for it, because yesterday I think was one of the best Super Bowls I've seen in my lifetime.
Oh, for sure.
And for a guy like Patrick Mahomes to come out on top, I mean, it's going to be in a documentary, bro. Like,
might be. In addition to Patrick Mahomes, the team had 26 total rushes for 158 yards. They had 3 guys that had over 5 yards per carry. A lot of that damage was done by Isaiah Pacheco. We mentioned him earlier. I thought he was going to be the X factor in this game. And have we seen the guy run harder? I don't mean run hard, like break 2 tackles and then spin out, stiff armor guy. Like him and AP run like they're going to break through the damn ground when they run that ball. Like, that's what I mean by run hard.
Yeah, this man was fun watching run the ball last night. Like, he is going to be a big thing going forward in my eyes, and he opened a lot of eyes. Right there. He opened up a lot of eyes last night. So I think, and Kansas City should be ecstatic having him going forward, because he will have a bigger role, obviously. Now, I was going to talk about a little bit, my thoughts on Andy Reid, because he just won your second Super Bowl as a coach. You're not getting any older. You said that the other day in an interview.
Younger.
You got a decision. Yeah, you got a decision to make. To me, obviously, I feel like he's got a lot more, to give Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey. And you don't you don't want to really walk away from those type of players. But at the end of the day, after the Super Bowl win, you should feel comfortable being able to walk away, go and retire, enjoy your time on the beach or wherever warm place you want to go. Sip margaritas and whatnot, eat your cheeseburgers. Like,
I'd hate to see him go.
I would, yeah. I don't want to see him leave the game, but at the end of the day, I will respect him for that decision if he does come to that, decision in his life. And I feel like, what better? You don't get too many Super Bowl wins that often. So,
right,
to ride off in the sunset like that would be, end to a great career, in my opinion.
Not to get too far ahead, but still, after coming away from this game, Philly was the more complete team, and Kansas City,
they were
pretty glaring deficiencies. They're going to get better next year. They're going to have a better receiver in there, whether those guys improve or they bring somebody else in. They might have another running back to back up Pacheco, and they're going to shore up that defense some more. So, and you might stick around for one more run, man.
Here's my time frame. I think when Kelsey wants to go out, you go out.
I feel like Andy Reid is also a guy who's obviously we're a couple months away from starting the season again. He would allow these guys to let them know beforehand, okay, this is going to be my last run, even if we don't know. But maybe behind the scenes, go ahead, find your next coaching option. I don't want to be mulling this decision for 2 months. Then we get to April, and now you're trying to find a guy around draft time and shit like that, So that's just how I feel he would handle that.
Yeah, and I believe the perfect situation or scenario in my mind for him retiring would be if you're going to retire now, I would believe you name Bieniemy head coach.
Before he goes and gets a head coach job somewhere else. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. That's what the route you should be able to. That's why I think he's not retiring, because obviously Bieniemy's interviewing for other jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Ravens OC being one of them. So obviously it hasn't been talked about that Reed is actually contemplating retirement. It just kind of came up this week in an interview and it wasn't even really fully talked about. He just kind of gave like a hint, like, "Oh, I got a decision to make," you know?
Yeah.
But I think when you hear Andy Reid in his interviews and when he talks, yes, he's on the older spectrum, but the man is so youthful and fun
funny,
to be
man.
around.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like
him and Pete Carroll.
You know what I mean? Like, those two guys bring a lot to their teams, and their teams rally around them. So, you know, when you're having fun at that age, coaching, you know, football, like you're pretty much living a retired life. Like,
especially when you can win like that.
I mean, it is a lot of work. Obviously, I'm not going to take away from how much work you put into that profession, but you're not going to work. Like, you're doing something you love.
Finish up these stats here for KC's side. Juju 7 for 53, Kelsey 6 for 81 and a touchdown. A lot of that was done early, and then obviously Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore had a touchdown each. Obviously, we touched on this defense a couple of times this year. You like to compare them to the Vikings. I think that's a very good comparison because they are very bend but don't break. But the difference is they have 15 back there when you have 8. So
yeah,
8 is just about as half of 15, and that's pretty much what we see on the field as well.
Yep.
Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts played his fucking ass off, man. He was for sure the best player on the field. Even though Mahomes got the MVP, it was Hurts, no question. Hey,
it would have been even more of a hell of a game if Patrick Mahomes was 100% and playing more free.
That's true. But that's
not to take away from Jalen Hurts, though. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not taking anything away from him.
27 to 38, 304, 1 touchdown. Like we said earlier, 2 sacks, 15 rushes for 70 yards, 3 touchdowns. That is just huge right there. And obviously, we did mention this as well, that fumble loss that was returned for a touchdown. So I think that was one of the big turning points in this game. I'll get to another one in a second here. The rest of the team only had 45 yards combined rushing. That was between Gainwell, Boston Scott, and Miles Sanders. So that on 17 attempts, just over 2 yards a carry, that is not going to cut it.
That is what, to me, that's the X factor in the fucking game, was Kansas City being able to outrush Philadelphia.
Yeah, 158 to 115, 26 carries to 32 for Philly. So on less carries, they got more yards. They averaged 6.1. That is Kansas City to Philly's 3.6. And that was, if there was a surprise in this game, that was it. Like you said, man.
Well, and that's the thing, like, Philly was like the best rushing team, arguably, all year long, you know, and then Philly has such a great defense. Obviously, at times they've had some lapses in rush defense, more than pass defense. But it's funny because, I mean, Kansas City, they're not known to be, you know, a team to outrush you. Like,
no,
that's not what so for them to outrush arguably the best rushing team, that's where it changes the game.
It did. And Philly was able to get a lot of time of possession. I mean, they were 13 of 20 on 3rd and 4th down efficiency compared to KC's 4 out of 8, I should say, which just goes to show that a little more methodical option to a high-powered option, you know.
Yep.
It really just pick your poison. 53 plays for KC to 72 led to 35 minutes of time of possession to 24 for Kansas City. But it really didn't look like Philly's defense could hang around with this Kansas City offense for some reason. And I would assume being on the sideline for that long and then the long halftime, you'd be able to get after the quarterback or maybe cut off some of these receivers or tackle Pacheco or do anything. But Philly just did not come to play in this game defensively.
They did. They picked the worst time to have the worst game. Like, but, you know, to me, when I think about that, though, like we said, they have never faced a quarterback or offense like this all year long. They had a cupcake schedule. So Yeah, they had a historic year defensively, but how good were they really? Were they kind of seemed exposed last night?
Defensively, they did look a little exposed. Offensively, they're in great hands going forward because A.J. Brown
Oh
had
yeah,
96 yards, Devontae Smith at 100 yards. Goddard had some big plays, 6 for 60. So, obviously, the rushing attack was a surprise how ineffective it was, but going forward, I wouldn't expect that to be a problem at all. So, defense, obviously, you're not going to face many teams like Kansas City, many options like Patrick Mahomes, but you definitely want to shore up that when you do play those elite units for sure. Because number one seed, you're gonna have a number one schedule next year, so you're gonna be playing some heavy hitters. So you're gonna have to get something together over there, and you're gonna be losing some guys. So
they ain't gonna have the same defense.
Nah,
as this year.
There really is no break. You got to get right back to work.
What were they this year? They were. What was their record again this year? 14-3.
Both teams are 14-3. Yeah.
Okay, so and that's including. Oh no, that's 14-3. Okay, 14-3. Yeah, I would. If I had to guess right now, just fresh off the Super Bowl, my prediction would probably be Kansas City's probably going to be able to be the team who can repeat that record more than anyone. But Philly, for me, seems more like based on the offseason they're going to have and losing some key defensive players, I'd probably have to bump that down to more of a 11-6.
That's usually the case. These teams that go to the Super Bowl come up short. It's Philly's case especially. They put all the chips in the middle of the table on this one. So, like you said, they're going to be losing quite a few significant players this offseason. They do draft well. Maybe Nakobe Dean can step up and play well. Jordan Davis did have an appearance or two. Hit Patrick Mahomes a couple times last night. So,
yeah. And they do have I'm going to guess with, that since they have that first round pick from whoever it was, but it's Saints. And so it's a decent first round pick. Yeah, my guess is they probably go defense.
Yeah, it's probably going to be one of your first needs to address. I wouldn't mind getting a nice, offense is straight. Maybe a better running back. I do like Miles Sanders.
But it depends, though, also, because
Kelsey's
going to retire, maybe. Like, O-line.
Yeah. It's a lot to think about on the fly.
But that was just my one fresh prediction. Like, probably 11-6 around there is going to be what they are next year.
All right, give me your Super Bowl prediction for next year and we get out of here.
Oh, fresh like that, huh?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me see here. Obviously, we got to kind of forget the off-season moves and just kind of have a best guess.
You can give me your final four. 2 from each. What do you think some teams are going to do? Because I think it'll be the same in the AFC, unless we bring Lamar back. But for now, I say KC Cincinnati.
I would have to say I would agree with the KC Cincinnati take on the AFC side. I feel like that's a lot easier to predict than the NFC because the NFC has a tendency to really bounce around year to year. You know what I mean? Like that's for me though, man. Philly has a good shot at being there still.
I got to say San Fran's got to get back into contention.
It's hard though because I don't know how Brock Purdy's going to look as a full year starter. I don't know but they're my number one pick for NFC because look, they're there damn near every year.
Yeah.
They have a great history as a franchise. They make great offseason additions and subtractions every single year. Shanahan and John Lynch work very well together in building that roster.
Yeah.
So they're definitely probably the number one pick for me in NFC, but I don't know.
Yeah, it is tough. It put us both on the spot, make us both look dumb.
No, I would have to really think about it.
I would too.
I just wanted to give a Philly prediction of kind of bumping them down a notch because I don't think they have it in them to kind of repeat that type of season they had this year.
That's fair enough. That's it for me. You got anything else?
No, man. This was the last one for.
That was the last one, bro.
For unless it's until at least like a month until we dive into off season stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we got some research to do before we get into that shit. So
I say it's time to really get to the drawing board and research board when it comes to the draft, free agency, and really diving into this thing. Because look, I mean, it feels like yesterday that we just started this thing, but it's already been a year. It's crazy to think about that year flew by, and it just keeps going faster and faster. So for me, it was a great 2022-2023 season. I enjoyed it, every single day. And obviously, give me a month and I'll be raring to go for next season.
No question. We need our little vacation too, just like Andy Reid in there. But then we back to the drawing board, baby. That's it for me, though. We appreciate y'all for sticking with us. This season 1 or season 0, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Until next time.